Who doesn't love the Middle Ages with its mighty knights, imposing castles, and armies of orcs stirred to war against man by the awakening power of Sauron? Alright, we might have gotten Middle Ages mixed up with the Middle Earth there, but in this latest challenge episode, we sent your favorite lab rat fresh from hunting ghosts in Kentucky back in time 800 years to try a medieval diet meant for kings. Challenge start. Regimen Sanitantis Salernitanum. It means, I don't know, to be honest. Something about a Salernitan regimen of health, I believe. What I do know is that it's one of the only surviving health texts from the Middle Ages, and infographics pretty much jumped at the opportunity to make me try it out for 30 days the moment they discovered its existence, because if there's one thing people in the Middle Ages were known for, it was their keen knowledge of health. So what is it exactly? Well, it's part cookbook and part medical texts, and part spiritual musings, sort of like a medieval version of Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, only filled with better science. It's believed to have been written as early as 1050 AD, but was probably put together in the 12th or 13th century and was allegedly written by the Scuola Medica Salernitana, an Italian medieval medical school. No one is sure who the actual author is though, but it's largely attributed to a poet named John of Milan and written for a European king named Robert Curthose. The work is written in the style of a poem and touches on daily hygiene and diet. This is a work that was based on the humoral theory of medicine, a belief that the body's health was controlled by properly managed levels of 4 specific humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Using food, hygiene, and good physical habits, you could keep those 4 humors in check and avoid dying of the common cold, which was probably killing millions of people at the time. Or at least anyone left over after the plague got through with him. Surprisingly though, some of the ideas aren't so far-fetched as one might think, since a lot of the practices contained in the book were discovered by figuring out what worked and what didn't work. While medieval doctors might have not had a clue as to what a virus or a germ was, they at least did understand that diet had a big impact on one's health. It's just that maybe they weren't always focusing on the right things to eat. Alright, so page 1 of the book would help me set my new daily habits. The very first thing the book recommends is that you do not stress out and don't get angry in order to stay healthy. This is actually backed by pretty solid modern science. If you spend all day raging at strangers online, you're setting yourself up for a whole host of medical issues. Instead, relax, be kind, and don't let things stress you out so much. That part was pretty easy for me. I tend to live my life like that already. Next, I am commanded to be sparing of undiluted wine, so no heavy drinking. Again, sounds pretty reasonable. Never been a big drinker. I am not allowed to take afternoon naps after eating a big meal. That one is hard. I'm a fan of naps. The girlfriend swears I'm half cat because according to her, every time she turns around, me and the dog are napping in front of our big open window in the living room where sunlight streams in. The book warns me against retaining my urine and tightly compressing my anus. I think I get it. Don't hold in your poops. Gotcha. I will refrain from tightly compressing my anus. Some people in the comments section should also probably follow this advice. Next, I'm instructed that if I ever need a physician, these 3 doctors will suffice: a joyful mind, rest, and a moderate diet. I mean, the book isn't wrong. All those things will help you be healthier. But I'm pretty sure the reason it lists these 3 doctors is because they were all that was available to most people at the time. In America, this is still largely true. Next, I received my instructions for how to go about my day. First thing upon waking up is to wash my face with cold water, and then do some light stretching. Comb my hair, brush my teeth. Honestly, all tracks so far. After my bath, have some breakfast, and then stand or walk around afterwards. And I should do that for each meal, by the way. Okay. Honestly, this all sounds like a pretty healthy morning routine anyway. Next, I am told to take a short afternoon nap, or don't. Literally, it says that. Take an afternoon nap or don't. Further, the book warns that fever, indolence, headache, and chest cold could all result from taking that nap. Now, that's exactly the type of medieval age advice I was expecting. Next is the girlfriend's least favorite part of the whole book, and I quote, 4 illnesses came from gas retained in the stomach: spasm, dropsy, colic, and vertigo. The subtext is clear here. If you gotta fart, let her rip. I have the green light to fart as much as I'd like for the next 30 days. Finally, I am warned to eat only a light meal before bed and to not eat again until my stomach has been purged and emptied. Alright, so what am I going to be eating exactly? Well, first, some things I can't eat if I'm sick. Peaches, apples, pears, milk, cheese, salted meats, deer meat, rabbit, goat, and beef. All bad for me if I'm sick. I'm assuming it's okay to eat if I'm healthy though. Now it's time to set my diet, and here's the things I'm supposed to eat on a daily basis. Red wine, rich gravy, wheat, milk, fresh cheese, pork meat, sweet wine, quote, good-tasting foods, which as a description definitely falls short on the scientific standard, raw eggs, guess salmonella didn't exist in the medieval ages, ripe figs and fresh grapes. Oh yeah, also testicles, brain, and marrow. Now, the book doesn't specify which animal's testicles, but I'm assuming it's going to be one of those domesticated types, so I don't know, dealer's choice? All in all, not exactly a balanced diet as recommended by the USDA. Medieval doctors never even heard of a food pyramid. Alright, the book goes on with the general tips on living your best life. Like, for example, if you mix wine with seawater before a sea voyage, you won't get seasick. Extremely confident that's not scientific, but I guess if you mix enough wine with anything, you'll be so blitzed you won't even know you're on a boat. The book also recommends that if you have a hangover, just drink more in the morning. I can personally vouch that that does not work. Also, this book finds water pretty sus, and instead recommends drinking beer or wine. In fact, it claims that beer will not weigh you down, so I guess I'm going to be going through quite a few six-packs. As millions of beer bellies around the world can attest, beer definitely does weigh you down. But remember, this was the Middle Ages, where being fat meant you were successful and super sexy. Being muscular and fit meant you worked in the fields like a dirty peasant, so you were probably poor. By the way, the reason why medieval people drank so much alcohol is because life generally sucked, but also because the process of making alcohol killed a lot of bacteria, and normal drinking water often made people sick since they had no sanitation. So it really makes sense. So to prepare for my month of medieval diet, I immediately made my way to the butcher shop, only I had to find one that dealt in parts of the animal we don't normally eat. I managed to find a place in Chinatown, no surprise there, where I was able to get some of the more specialty cuts of meat I required. This included pig intestines, because the book clearly warns against eating the intestines of any other animal, but promises that pig intestines and wine is good medicine. Then I snagged some testicles, both bull and pig, as well as some sheep and cow brains. The butcher gave me a strange look, but as I've covered in many of my previous challenges, as far as I'm concerned, protein is protein. Lastly, I got some duck, because later in the book it says that waterfowl are nourishing. Most of what I was going to end up eating definitely wasn't available in a local supermarket, so promised the butcher I'd be back often over the next month, and he seemed happy to have my very strange business. When I got home, I set my random meat down on the kitchen table, including my bag of testicles and brains, and the girlfriend began dry heaving and ran out of the room. So, how did my month go? For my breakfast, I ate a lot of toast with large servings of butter, as butter, the book states, is good for digestion. I used whole wheat bread, which I'm normally not a fan of, but I eventually got used to it. Everything got washed down with a big serving of milk. The book is super into milk, although I wasn't able to find donkey milk, which the book claimed was the healthiest of all milks. I ended up switching between goat and cow milk. I can safely say I am not a fan of goat milk. It has a weird taste to it. Also, with my breakfast, I had a lot of cheese. Turns out medieval people made a ton of different cheeses, so there really wasn't much off limits. I even bought it in those big round wheels and carved it off with a big knife I found. I was definitely getting into the medieval spirit of things. Maybe a bit too much as I began to call the girlfriend my wench and demand she refill my chalice. The second time I did it, she threw a cheese wheel at me and put a dent in the wall. Oh yeah, I got a chalice, a big one too. It seemed more appropriate, and I can tell the girlfriend absolutely hates it. Or maybe she hates the fact that I mostly ended up drinking beer and wine since the book is so anti-water. So I was perpetually lightly hammered. I'm not a big alcohol drinker, to be honest, so it didn't take much to keep me buzzed. After this experience, I can honestly tell you that our ancestors were raging alcoholics. Cheese was a pretty big part of the diet. The book literally tells you to end each meal with cheese for proper digestion. So cheese lovers rejoice, this diet's for you. Also for breakfast, I had raw eggs. I have no idea how medieval people prepared them, but the book says raw, so raw it was. After each raw egg, I had to drink a whole cup of wine. Apparently it helps with digestion. All I know is it definitely helps to wash away the taste of a raw egg, which is pretty awful. The girlfriend has a thing about eggs, so when she saw me slurping down raw eggs, she started gagging again. It's all just protein to me. Lunch and dinner were the most challenging meals. I know a lot of southern people are into chitlins, but eating intestine was probably my least favorite part of this whole thing. I tried following a chitlin recipe I found online, but they just keep coming out tough and rubbery. Oh, by the way, always make sure to thoroughly clean your chitlins because poop runs through them. I spent quite a lot of time in the South, so I was aware. The girlfriend was not at all. So when she finally gathered up the nerve to pick up a piece of intestine to feel it, she got some brown stuff on her hand and thought she was going to pass out. From that day on, she couldn't eat at the same table as me whenever I made up the chitlins. You know your food is fresh, by the way, if your chitlins are still a bit mucky. Gotta say, that Chinatown butcher shop was on point. I looked up some recipes for brain online as well, and honestly I found them to be kind of tasteless. I tried sheep and cow brain, they both kind of tasted the same to me. When the girlfriend saw me preparing them, she about had a fit, though I think it was the testicles that really did it for her. She ended up vomiting a bit into the sink when she saw me frying those up. For the rest of the day, she refused to let me kiss her. It didn't take me long into this whole journey to understand more of medieval history and why people were constantly fighting and killing each other. Also, why science was so slow to advance. The book recommends wine or beer with literally every single meal. Do you have any clue how absolutely hammered our ancestors were? According to them, water was too cooling and would produce indigestion. So instead, you either mixed it with wine or just drank straight wine, period, or beer, every single meal, and an entire glass of it after certain foods like eggs. I wasn't ever incapacitated enough that I couldn't function, but the girlfriend forbade me for driving anywhere, and honestly, that was a good call. Good thing I mostly work from home. So, how did I feel after 30 days of eating raw eggs, beer, pork meat, wine, testicles, beer, brain, wine, cheese, beer, wheat bread, wine, milk, beer, random waterfowl, and, of course, wine? Well, I unsurprisingly put on weight. What's surprising is I put on a whopping 10 pounds. But it wasn't really like in any one area you might expect. Instead, it was just kind of all over the place. The girlfriend said I just looked padded all over, which is kind of a weird way to describe me. I hadn't stopped doing my normal exercising and weightlifting during this time, and I actually noticed that all the protein on this diet has definitely increased muscle mass, but the addition of body fat along with muscle proved to me that every time you watch a medieval show, it's BS. Guys back then weren't jacked with abs. They were strong, but they were also thick. So next time you're watching The Witcher and Geralt takes his shirt off, imagine him with a bit of a belly, far fewer abs, and more body fat all over. It was weird being buzzed all the time at first, but I eventually got up my tolerance and noticed it less and less. Medieval people must have had an ungodly tolerance for alcohol because they literally drank it all the time. It was like Gatorade to them, and I have to admit, sports would be a lot more fun if the players were absolutely wrecked the entire time. I guess cutting out all that sugar we have in our diet today was a good thing. Surprisingly, I noticed that my cardio actually improved despite this diet being so carb-heavy. Or maybe I was just hammered since I do my running in the morning, and I had to drink an entire cup of wine after each and every egg I ate. All in all, I thought this diet was going to be a lot harder than it was, or at least it would have a lot worse repercussions than it did. After all, this diet comes from the same people who thought vinegar, quote, dries up the nerves of the fat, which I have absolutely no idea what that means. If you're interested in trying it out, look up the Regimen Sanitatis Salernitanum for yourself. Just make sure you stock up on testicles because you're going to be eating a lot of them. Now go check out my prison food challenge or click this other video instead.